Wars fans, here to do another movie review for you. And this one is the last chapter to the Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Although it's their 7th MCU appearance.
Oh.
Because they were in a couple of Avengers movies, and then they had the holiday special. So,
that's right.
Right?
Can't forget the holiday special.
That's right. So, if you're new to the Cult Lords channel, we want to thank you for stopping by. My name's JR.
I'm Dane.
And we are the
Cult
Lords. Yes.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Our
mojo's not working right now.
Gotta get that rust off.
Yeah. So, if you're new to the channel, we like to do a movie review every week for you. But we also put out trailer reactions every day. We have music episodes, unboxings, series episodes, reviews. Did Last of Us, House of the Dragon. We'll be doing something very soon. So, yeah. Subscribe.
Music.
You can subscribe, and you can get all of that into your feed if you just hit subscribe, hit the like button, and then tell us in the comments, did you like Guardians of the Galaxy 3? Were your scores on par with our scores?
Who knows? Yes.
Yes.
And, we should say ours are the more important scores.
Of course.
You will be...
Industry-leading scores compared to, like, Rotten Tomatoes or something like that.
Right.
But, if you don't know about the Cult Lords, we like to watch our own products on set. I don't know why you
actually scared me. No, I was trying to look up the comments.
Oh.
Caught me off guard. I didn't know the volume was so high.
That was our opening right there. Okay. What is this? Amateur
Still
hour?
smart.
Gosh, we've been doing this
Man.
almost a
But
year
we
and a
should
half.
say it's free.
Yes.
It's free.
If you don't know about us, we have been friends now for, 12 to 15 years. What is it? And we always... before COVID, would go out to see a movie, and then we would see a movie, and then go back to the bar, have a drink, and then dissect the movie, because we love movies. So now we've started the channel, but we still have kept our opening song. Play it again for you. No, we've kept the tradition of having a drink. And
yes.
Dane, what are we drinking this week?
We are drinking in honor of Guardians of the Galaxy, which I consider kind of like the High West. Western type movies, the way they've done these. We're doing High West Double Rye. Kind of really cool bottle. You see how it's like an old time glass? Got a little shimmer to it and everything, but it's definitely on the spicy side. You can eat it, needs a little water, I think, but a good mixer, a blend of straight rye whiskeys, 46% alcohol, and from Utah.
That's
who knew?
Shocked me.
Yeah.
That Utah has distilleries out there.
But it might not be distributed in Utah. It might be made in Utah.
I know.
That might be the catch. But it's a tasty beverage.
Yeah.
If you like your spicy ryes, especially if you want to mix it in something, this is really good for that. It's up there with the bullet rye.
There we go. So let's take a little sip. And we are ready to go. Now, if you have not seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3 yet, we have a warning to issue.
Oh.
Spoiler warnings!
What?
Yes.
Will Robinson.
We are about to go into heavy spoilers. We're going to talk about everything that happened in the movie. So if you do not want to hear that right now, hit pause. Go check out your local AMC theater, Cinemark,
Bring
Magic
us with
Johnson,
you to the theater.
whatever
How about that?
theater you want to go to. And go Regal. Is that still around? I don't know.
It is.
All right.
Classic cinemas in
Classic
Chicagoland.
cinemas. All right. Go to your local cinema. Check out Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Then come back, hit unpause, and watch this review. So you have been warned. Now, the way we like to start off our reviews is, as Dane was saying, we like to give you the industry standard Cult Lords ratings. Everybody falls in line to what we have to say. We know that. We try not to influence too much.
And we're not too arrogant about it.
Yeah, we're not too arrogant about it. We try not to influence too much about what's going
What
on
the
in
rest
the
of the
industry.
industry is.
Yes. We don't want to kill the industry with a write-out.
Because our vote is worth millions of dollars for producers.
Yes.
You either are dumped in the can, or you're suddenly like,
they're like, what does that 600 subscription YouTube channel have to say about this?
And we do it for free.
I know,
We
right?
don't even get a taste of this.
All right.
Man.
All right. Before we go to the Cult Lords ratings, though, we'd like to see what the zeitgeist has to say. What does the movie sphere have to say? The audience, the critics. So let's see what the Rotten Tomatoes have to say. Now, Dane, you have not seen these Rotten Tomatoes yet.
No.
All right.
I do my utmost to avoid them.
All right.
Wear blinders.
What I would like you to do is
glasses.
to take a guess at what the critics gave this.
What the critics gave this? I'm going to say a 90.
90. Perfect score. All right. What did the audience give this?
94.
94. Well, Dane.
Yes. How right was I?
The critics gave it an 82.
Ooh, okay.
But the audience gave it a 94.
Whoa!
So you were right on there. All right.
That's good to know.
Yeah, so 82 and 94.
I was kind of thinking I was
the audience was going to go higher.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking it was definitely going to be audience high and critics lower, but I wasn't thinking that low.
Yeah.
So
still though, critics.
Those critics.
Critics gave it a fresh score.
Yeah.
Certified fresh at 82%. So, but now
way better than Triangle of Sadness.
Yes. Now let's see what the Cult Lords have said. We've just gotten our scores in from our accounting firm, Deloitte and Douche.
Just brought it in.
Deloitte and Douche.
Deloitte and Douche.
So, yeah.
Deloitte and Douche.
No, it's Deloitte and Douche. All right. So on the count of three, we will reveal.
Under seal, it was just unsealed, and
yes,
there we go.
Yes, our accountant is just off stage here. So
Larry, can you come over?
No,
he's
Larry,
busy.
Larry.
He's shy.
All right. On the count of three. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, what was it? Oh,
Save the robot pets.
Save the robot pets. Retire the playlist.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's pertinent. I understand.
Yeah. Time to retire that playlist. All right.
One of these days.
All right. So Dane, you liked it more than I did. I gave it basically a C+.
Yes. I noticed you fell asleep at one point during the movie. You woke up. Sure. I didn't feel like I had to nudge you this time.
It was boring. I thought I was a
there
little
were boring parts. There were boring.
Very boring parts.
But I, the thing is there was obviously a lot of touching parts too. I mean, which is not typical for your superhero Marvel movie.
Was it touching?
Well, the whole, we're just diving right into the deets here. I mean, the whole thing with the pets, with his friends, and all the background story. I mean, it went a little
animal experimentation.
Experimentation. I mean, they really were trying to pull at your heartstrings with that, because God, I mean, there was a couple of times, I will admit, I was tearing up with some of the stuff, especially with when his buddies get killed, know, and things along those lines. I mean, it was tough. There was a lot of they deliberately wanted to show every single scene.
Yeah.
And a lot of that could have been cut. I mean, from the standpoint of what was the objective?
Right.
His objective was not to hang out and show his background. It was really the rest of them trying to rescue him.
Right.
But they needed to keep him like an active character, so that they had his whole backstory going on. So
yeah. So he was obviously an inquisitive raccoon, and he had always denied he was a raccoon because he didn't really know what he was.
Right.
But we do see, obviously,
100%.
He's a raccoon, and what the High Evolutionary, who is what's his last name? Wyndham. I kept thinking of Wyndham Hotels.
That was his last name, Wyndham?
Yeah, it's Herbert Edgar Wyndham. He's a fictional character, and he plays the High Evolutionary.
And he's a newer character, or has he been around?
No, his first appearance, Mighty Thor from 1966.
Holy cow!
Yep.
Wow, they were deep thoughts all the way back then. Although
but he's evolved, to what he is portrayed in this movie.
Yeah, right.
So.
Well, you knew when they showed him with the skin job, you were kind of at first oh, maybe he's just been doing a lot of facelifts.
Yeah. And
then when they show the part when you actually see what happened with the raccoon, with Rocket after the High Evolutionary guy kills his friends, well, okay. I know what's behind that mask, and that's going to be coming out pretty soon. So and it was gruesome.
In the comic, he went to the University of Oxford in Manchester. He was born in Manchester. While a student at Oxford, he took interest in the work of genetic biology, and he was expelled from the university because he succeeded in involving his pet Dalmatian named Dempsey into a humanoid life form with the intelligence of a chimpanzee.
Wow, that's very specific.
However,
I would love to know who wrote that story.
What's interesting, however, Dempsey, the Dalmatian, was shot by poachers. I'm like,
oh my God.
Yes. And Wyndham realized that such creatures as he would create have no place in the human world. So, kind of interesting.
Well, which is interesting, yeah. I mean, so you could see a little bit of that in the movie character, but they obviously completely kind of
Have you seen what the High Evolutionary looks like in the comics?
No, I don't know. We'll put a picture up here because even I don't know. And
so he looks like this.
So he's almost... So in other words, a lot of his body parts have been changed out, you know, and all that. So... But I
mean, he looks like a Crimson King or something, you know what I mean? A little bit. So.
But he didn't have... But is he an android? Well, what do they call that? Is cybernetic?
So it does say that he was... No. I think I'm mixing it up with Adam Warlock, which we'll talk about in this.
Yeah.
But Adam Warlock in the comics was engineered like as a cybernetic by a council of people.
Oh.
And then he actually had an Infinity Stone in his head in the comics, but not. They made some sort of homage to it, but it wasn't an Infinity Stone.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say it definitely looked like that, but because I mean in this one it was obvious, or they blatantly said it, that he was created,
right,
and that he was part of one of the races that the evolutionary had, established. Right. And so it was interesting that
Rocket was different from every creation because somehow something sparked in him where the knowledge that the High Evolutionary was seeking, he was able to figure out equations that no other people could figure out. Right
at this point,
Apparently they were like stuff from like over 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, and he was able to figure it out. And then the High Evolutionary then wanted to take his mental capacity and then put it more into a human brain, right? So remember, that's what he had those kids for. He wanted to put it into those kids. He was
trying to replicate it into the more like an acceptable race.
Right.
But that was an interesting situation where they came to the counter Earth and it was all animals, and they were basically doing the exact same things that humans do. Buying drugs, beating the crap out of each other, mowing the lawn, it was like Earth, but with all crazy creatures.
It was like the island of Dr. Moreau in space.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But,
and then I guess the whole planet was around his ship, so when he left, the whole planet fell apart.
Right. So... But
interesting.
So the High Evolutionary also believes what he's doing is for good, and he actually references Thanos in here. Do you remember that? He goes, Thanos snapped his finger to exterminate half of everybody in this because he thought he was doing good, and he goes His logic was sound, but his method was wrong. And so what he wants to do is genetically reorganize everybody, and then he wants to take violence away from organisms to where they're not violent. And he goes, if you take the violence away, then you have a peaceful universe, right? So he thinks he's doing good, where,
Right. And we should point out, Rocket actually told him how to get the violent gene or whatever it is out of the genetic evolutionary little closet they get into, and it turns a turtle into an exact like standing up replica of like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I made a funny. I was kind of surprised they didn't make that reference, because it would have been very funny if they did that, because it looked like it.
They had a turtle, that was
Right.
mutated, but like he got very ultra violent.
Right,
Like
right.
that.
I guess they were like,
Yeah.
you make him a mild guy, like cowabunga, dude. Where's my pizza?
Right.
They're like, all right, we're crossing the line here.
Yeah.
So,
But so the Guardians have to go on a quest to, find Rocket, and then Rocket's been injured and is dying, and so they've got to find a way to to heal Rocket.
Yeah, they gotta get his original. Well, yeah, because I guess Rocket never told them the backstory.
Yeah.
And so they were all discovering things. I guess we were kind of discovering things.
Right.
That he had that whole. They never knew that he was genetically altered like that, and then they found a kill switch bomb on his heart.
Kill switch, yeah.
When they were trying to.
So if they tried
revive
to
him.
if they were to use their normal methods, the kill switch would kill them. So they couldn't do that.
So they had to get the code.
Yes.
Passcode.
They had to go
the
find
1,000,000 character passcode.
They had to go find the code, which is what took them to the lair of the High Evolutionary, right? And of course, there, which is guarded by Nathan Fillion, from
from Serenity.
Yeah, Serenity, Firefly. But
it's one of the what was that? It began with an O. It was like the Organomorphs or something like that. Was the name of the company? The planet, the Organomorphs. That was actually pretty gross.
Yeah.
The entire planet that existed.
It was a living planet.
It was a living planet made of if somebody had just full on growing skin in space, and it just kept on going. Of course, it didn't explain.
There was tubes that looked like bile going through.
Right. Everything was squishy. When you wanted to press a button or open a door, you had to you had to do this to it.
Grab some slime, right? I got an interface. So, when they went out in the Beatles, multicolored astronaut suits, right?
Oh, you're right.
And then to talk to, on their arms was a bunch of buttons, and if you wanted to talk to them, you didn't press the normal colors because green was red and blue was, the only thing that was right was yellow. To talk, and Quill was in yellow. But I guess when he was having his little private moment with Gamora, he was talking to everybody.
We know we can hear you.
Yeah. And this is where we were laughing. You were laughing. I was
laughing. There was a lot of humor
in
the movie.
Yeah.
That was one thing. As much as there was humor in the movie, there was sadness. It really kind of tried to go, but it was there's a line in the middle, and we're going to go one way, and we're going to go the other way, and we're going to keep doing this throughout the entire movie.
So you did bring up the sadness around the animal experimentation, the pets. Another form of sadness was that Gamora still just is not the same Gamora. Does not love Quill.
And I miss you so much. And maybe if you open yourself up to it, there's a possibility.
I don't think so, Quinn.
And starts off with Quill getting drunk, and they have to put him to bed every night. But when the Ravagers come in, led by Sylvester Stallone.
Yes.
And Gamora is now part of the Ravagers, right? That's when you see, Quill.
Well, we find out. I'm sorry. I forgot. What's the blue woman's name?
Nebula.
Nebula was communicating.
The whole time.
The whole time you find that out. And so
Yeah.
she's the one who's kind of
They're sisters, though.
Right. But what was interesting is it's kind of in the back, in the previous time, she'd always kind of taken a back seat to everything. And this one, she was kind of leading the show most of the time. She was kind of almost like she was the puppet master in the background. And she'd be like, well, I'm going to get you to this point, and then you guys go do it, and then I'll wait back, and then I'll come back, and then I'll wait back.
She had more of a leadership role, definitely, yeah.
She was the one who, they told her, why don't you just go wait in the ship, and then she goes out, and she's standing, no, she's not the one that waits in the ship. She's in front of the giant ship before it takes off, and then she's the one who discovers the kids, and then lets them out.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of interesting juxtapositions of the characters in this, which...
Then another sad moment is we all know when we meet Drax for the first time, he wants to kill Thanos, right?
Yeah.
He talks about it because Thanos killed his daughter, right? And which deprived him of being a dad. So when he sees these little kids locked up, he's being very playful with them and whatever, and then Mantis and Nebula, they kind of are looking at Drax and seeing him in a different light, a light as if he wanted to be a dad, right? So they even bring up, at the very end, Drax, you would be a good father.
Right.
You can tell that, right? And then he reflects on his own daughter, and then he gets emotional, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, and you do find out, too, that Drax actually has a lot more intelligence than anyone thought. Because he's the only one that could speak the language.
Yeah.
Which they didn't really explain. They kind of he just started speaking the language. Like, what?
Yeah.
Well, how is it you've never done this before?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but that was another interesting point. I mean, and when the movie ends, if you look at all this stuff in hindsight, you're kind of like, okay, well, then it's obvious. They knew this is the last time you might see these characters ever.
Right.
So we have to really explore their backstory a lot more, and
So
that probably led to the very long movie.
Right. I do think there's going to be another Guardians of the Galaxy. It won't be a James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy, but I don't think it's going to have Quill. I don't think it's going to have Drax. I think it's going to have Adam Warlock now, led by Rocket Raccoon, Nebula,
And
Kraglin, which is the Yondu type species guy,
and there was
who now has the ability to
finally we figured it out.
Finally figure out
Grow a pair, boy. The arrow.
The arrow that
arrow of death. What is that
death.
thing made out of that it can pierce everything? I mean, that's one thing. You never is
vibranium.
That's what I was gonna say. Have they ever established that? I mean, that's one of those weird. Seems like as long as you can control it, it can literally kill anything, exist anywhere. It never gets chopped in half. It can't get destroyed. I mean,
it's a good weapon.
Yeah.
So
you can control it.
Yeah.
Even with your little bit of a pot belly.
Yeah.
They really stressed how out of shape that guy was.
Yeah.
And then I didn't realize that the skull, which was where it is nowhere, was an actual dead god. I forgot about that. They referenced that,
and
but
now
it was giant cannon.
Now it is the headquarters for the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right, and then that was cool. That whole effect where they drove it in there and then shot the giant cannon and then took on the evolution. What's his name? The evolutionary guys. High evolutionary. Shot his headquarters down.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very. I mean, there was a lot of entertaining stuff.
I mean,
it was definitely too long. I mean,
I was entertained. It was too long. I was bored though throughout parts. Really, I was bored. For them to get from one scene to the next scene. One scene to the next.
There was a lot more talking in this one than they've ever done, and and they were, like I said, they were trying to close off character, ends. They were trying to create an end for these characters because, you didn't want to just end the movie and then they're like, oh well, we'll see you next. Well, we won't see you ever again. So I need to know the backstory of every single character. And
runtime 2 hours 30
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it
was just 2 hours.
It definitely needed.
Unless you're Endgame, where you need 2.5 to maybe even 3 hours. These side stories should not be 2.5 hours.
And the other thing that was missing here is because Rocket Raccoon was, he was out half the movie, other than his own. It was all flashback or him memorying, and that's always the kiss of death in movies because you want your scenes, your movie, your storyline, your main character going towards an objective. And his was constantly going backwards, remembering things. And so the movie, I think, suffered because all of them, it kept going back to that to kind of go revisit his backstory. But it had nothing to do with really the main thrust of the entire movie, which was to save him, I mean... So there was no interaction, and he brought a lot more...
Still gave you information about him and his
But in the original
origin.
movie, he was kind of like the foil for everybody else. Because he was always the smart ass, or the one that criticized everybody, and that wasn't in this movie. So it's they kind of had to force, everyone... they had to bring the Gamora... The other thing, too, is the whole thing between Gamora and Peter.
Yeah.
That was... kind of getting, Thor and his mighty hammer. There was a little bit too much of a
with Jane,
Yeah.
And it's weird because we've now seen in the last year Doctor Strange, right? Multiverse. Mm-hmm. We saw Thor. We saw Black Panther, right? We saw Ant-Man.
Wasn't in the last year. Wasn't
all
Spider-Man
within
in the
a
last
year.
year? The last Spider-Man wasn't in the metaverse?
No. No, that was just outside a year.
Okay.
You could say, if you say the last 15 months,
Okay.
then yeah, you could count the Spider-Man.
Wanda,
But what?
No, she was in the Doctor Strange, the Wanda character. Yeah.
But like, it feels like I'm trying to see where all these stories connect compared to when you were like in Marvel Phase 1, 2, 3, and then 4 going up to Endgame. You really did feel like everything connected. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Connected going up to Endgame. So I don't know, like, now that we're in these newer phases, are all of these trying to connect? Like, is the Eternals trying to connect? Is the Marvels is coming up next? Are they all trying to connect somehow as a story for some sort of end purpose?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, because they brought out Warlock.
Yeah.
And doesn't he appear as his own character and intermingle with all these other groups in the comic books? So maybe that's
well,
gonna
he's an Avenger at one point.
Never mind the fact that he acts like he's 15.
Yeah, and that's not how Adam Warlock in fact, I was going to say Adam Warlock is created almost like Vision is created by like an entity of people. He's more of a cybernetic guy. Mm-hmm. And then they give him the Infinity Stone in his head. And he's very powerful, and he doesn't act like a kid, where in this one they take that golden race that they showed prominently in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and that the leader of them is like his mother, and they put him in like a cocoon thing, right? And he, basically hatches, and now he's like growing up.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday! Hey, I said my first words.
Yeah, but like half the time he was very naive. Like he didn't know what he was doing. And, and ironically, I mean, that worked out in the Guardians' favor because he was put on a mission to go kill. Well, he didn't mean to kill Rocket Raccoon, right? He was trying to retrieve him, and then he ended up getting hit.
Right.
And because he was you find out so naive, because the movie starts out where you think he's evil.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then you find out later.
No, he's just dumb.
Happy birthday!
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
He just doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, so it is going to be telling how they portray that character in the next movies.
He's about to die, and then they save him. And then that's when he's like, "You're willing to save me?" And he sees, like, the empathy that they have for other people, and that's what changes him, right? And so, I mean, it was an okay movie. I mean, like I said, I was a little bit bored. I mean, I laughed. Some of the action was great.
He laughed. I cried.
I didn't cry.
I cried.
I didn't cry in
I
this.
laughed too.
I cried in movies.
I was somewhere. I was tearing up, and I'm like, I sure hope JR's not looking.
No.
It was 3 times in this movie it hit me, and I don't remember every single time, but 3 times
I don't pay attention
like,
to what you're doing over there.
Oh man.
Unless you're like trying to whisper to me something, like, oh, isn't that, that song this or something, I mean.
Right. But no, I mean, there was a lot of stuff in this movie where you're like, oh my God, this is really, if they're going to keep going with this is hard to watch. I mean, so my chiropractor was telling me, he I asked, have you guys seen this? Because he subscribes, by the way. And I said, no, I haven't seen it. He's like, oh man, there's so many animal cruelty things going on in this movie.
What did your proctologist say?
If I did some sit-ups in the morning or bent over like this, I'd probably feel 100% Moon River.
Well, my proctologist, he was like, we were talking about moons over my hammy and over at Denny's. Yeah. But he was curious to know if, no.
Yeah. All right. Well, any last moments last parting thoughts before I ask the Cult Lords viewers what they think?
Oh, and remember, we have to shout out this guy.
Who?
Mr.
Oh!
Remember.
So I'll give you the honor of doing this.
Well, I don't know. Last thoughts. Anything that we missed? I mean, hey, it was a good movie. I mean, I just want to say that because some people, we've kind of crapped on this movie a lot, and we're relatively in the middle with scores, but we tend to go negative with a lot of our comments.
Well, because we criticize, but yet even
it's like it could have been so much better.
Yeah, even the best movies you have some sort of critical, piece to it.
Right.
there's no perfect movie. I would never give a movie a 10, ever. Because there's always somewhere that you can kind of pick apart something about that movie. So,
oh yeah.
But I mean, I enjoyed it. I gave it a C+.
It could have
I
been
thought
better.
about going to B-. Thought about going into the 8s. But I thought, like, of the 3 Guardians of the Galaxies, this was probably my least favorite of them.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think the biggest problem with this movie is it needed to be more concise.
Yeah.
It just kind of kept going off in these little side projects, and then finally it was like, come on, what's the objective? Get in there and stop going this way or that way. You know, we don't need to see everyone's backstory or learn. But that was the problem, is I think they kind of boxed themselves into the corner. This is the end of these characters. They're not going to move on to the next one, so we have to close off all of them and provide some kind of, satisfactory ending to them.
Like for Peter Quill, they do leave it open for him. In fact, they said at the end of the thing that he's going to return in something like The Legend of Star-Lord or something like that.
Oh, really?
Didn't you see that?
No, I missed that.
It was like at the end credits, it says Peter Quill will return in like The Legends of Star-Lord.
That was after there was him eating a cereal with his grandfather.
Yeah.
It was even after that? Oh,
yeah.
I missed that. Okay.
So, yeah, maybe you were asleep.
Might have been cleaning up my popcorn.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That's what the kids call it these days. So, you know what? I would love to hear what the Cult Lords viewers think.
Yes.
Right after you go down and hit subscribe, like, put it in the comments. And speaking of subscribing, Dane.
And as we've said before, this is our first announcement of somebody who actually has subscribed to the channel. We will give you a shout out if you put in the comments. Please give us a good comment and put something in there. But we are going to announce and thank...
Well, wait. What he didn't finish that. We will do a shout out if you subscribe and then go down into the comments that you just subscribed.
Right.
We will give you a shout out.
Because that is the only way we're going to know this. Because that's the thing with YouTube. They don't really tell you everybody that's subscribed. Yeah. Unless they call it out or they publicly...
Well, there's a setting in the privacy settings where you can show... If you show people when you subscribe, you get a notification that XYZ dude has subscribed. But if you don't have that marked in your privacy setting, we never know who you are once you subscribe. So, so who's the shout out this week?
Good to know.
Yep.
Anthony, how do you pronounce that? I'm going to say Chobot?
Chobot.
Chobot?
Yeah.
Does pop culture and openings. That's his channel. I do VHS openings, review sing-songs that I like, trailer reactions, production, other things, let's see, culture stuff, wrestling stuff, and comic books. Yeah. Thank you for subscribing, Anthony.
I noticed we're not subscribed to him. We need to subscribe to him, too.
Should I? Well, I haven't signed in. Well, this is because I haven't signed in.
Oh, okay.
You have to check it on your side.
I don't think
But Anthony, thank you very much again. You are the very first announced subscriber. Anyone else who wants to do exactly what my compadre here mentioned, we will give you a shout out. Put up your name.
Yep.
Like Sir Anthony here. And again, thanks for the support, everybody.
Yeah. And Dane, how do you want to...
I don't know.
Close down this episode.
Take out my Star-Lord guns. Pew, 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 pew. Peace out.